All right, we are good to go. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. If you're watching us live on Facebook, congratulations. You happen to be scrolling through our page and you came across this notice it's saying TMP is streaming live. If you're not watching us live on Facebook, welcome anyway. You're probably watching on YouTube. I'm Carolina Quesada with the Nonprofit Partnership, welcoming you to another awesome segment of Our Stories, Our Time, which is a series where we interview various nonprofit leaders to understand how organizations are navigating through current times. There's a lot of changes going on right now. So we want to know, where are nonprofits during this time? Now, before I introduce today's guest, the Nonprofit Partnership wants to thank the Port of Long Beach for their generous support of this series. And of course, again, if you're watching us live, please feel free to leave a comment, leave any questions if you'd like for our guest. We will be sharing contact information. So you might see some, some chatter as you're watching. If you're not, again, we will always share contact information if you're watching on Facebook as well. So, all right, and on YouTube. Good to go. Okay, well, thank you. If you're watching on Facebook. So, Fabrick, Brian, can you hear some feedback? Unfortunately, I think there's a little bit.
Can you let the 323 number back on?
Yes, I will do that. So, hi everybody, as we are getting started, I just wanted to say that we are just trying to do the setup here for the live interview. Again, want to welcome everybody. If you missed the first part, I just wanted to say that our interview is part of a series that we're doing that is sponsored by Port of Long Beach. So with that, and without further ado, I'm so excited because I have really been looking forward to engaging on this series with City Fabrick, and we have none other than the Executive Director, Brian Ulaszewski. And Brian is also one of the founders of City Fabrick. So Brian, it's great to have you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit about what we're up to and how our community and our partners can be engaged as well.
Awesome. So for those who live and work in Long Beach, you have probably engaged with City Fabrick already. It's an organization that's very much involved, very active, very engaged on various projects in the city. But why don't we take a little bit of time and get to know a little bit about you, Brian? Give us more of that story of how you came to be where you are today. You know, maybe you've been a part of the nonprofit sector for a long time, or maybe not. So curious minds want to know.
Yeah, so I started actually in the more traditional architecture and planning field. I'd worked for a number of firms coming out of school for a little over a decade. And at the same time, as a young couple, my wife and I had moved back to Long Beach and became active in our community, everything around, just general neighborhood beautification and historic preservation, but also park access and even environmental justice. And sort of, seeing these two sort of spaces that I was working in, my day job and my sort of nighttime and weekend work, basically the opportunity to merge it into one job. It's a lot of job, but just one sort of space to keep my head in. It also, provided clarity on what the kind of work that I wanted to do. And so, it was just basically, it was an interesting way it came about is that the firm that I was working in was traditionally sort of, architecture projects and with housing developers, commercial developers, and I gradually had transitioned my work portfolio there and theirs to include affordable housing, working with other nonprofits and local government. And then at the same time, my activism grew and grew, and in some cases created tension with some of our clients because it happened to be the city. And so, the idea started actually around the worst of the recession. I was still gainfully employed, but I saw enough opportunity in the work that we did that I was doing that I can, start City Fabrick.
That's awesome. And, I just want to backtrack a little bit. So you come from an urban planning background.
Architecture and urban planning, yeah.
Okay, so can you just explain a little bit more what that is? I think we, oftentimes we get a lot of questions, especially as the nonprofit sector intersects with community development. Sometimes folks don't quite understand what that is.
Yeah, I mean, like community development and urban planning and architecture are all sort of interrelated in that, there is countless decisions that are made that guide the quality of the living environment that you're in. Whether it is, how our federal government spends their money to, the color or type of furniture your neighbor puts on their porch. These all affect the quality of your life. Less so than others, maybe not the color of the porch furniture, but the furniture might, lead to more interaction with the sidewalk and more neighborliness. The federal budget obviously has long-reaching effects, but these effects, these decisions are sometimes thoughtful and sometimes are just reactive. And obviously, the more thoughtful ones hopefully yield better results. The knee reaction sometimes cause more harm. But these decisions have lasting effects. I mean, you think about Long Beach or even similar communities. We had series of racial covenants. We had systemic racism in our financial sector that you still see today, even though this was largely taking place half century to a century ago. But you still see health outcomes, environmental justice issues. You see all these overlay on each other, and you look at an old redlining map, which was basically a financial mapping system that determined where banks might approve mortgages, and it was largely based on the racial makeup of the community. And so these have lasting effects. And so if we can make better decisions today, we'll see those decisions bear fruit, many years from now. And
yeah, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No. I just this slight audio delay. I just wanted to say I'm getting so excited by everything you're sharing because it's so amazing, and I know we'll get a chance to a little further in our interview unpack a little bit more where all those things really come to a head and where they meet in a lot of the work that I think you're trying to move forward. But it's amazing to really think about that beneath services or beneath the veneer of a lot of what we're able to see, there's a whole world of infrastructure there that's both maybe soft infrastructure, but also like the built environment, right? And it's just amazing to consider for a moment just all of the layers of maybe power that's embedded in all of that, having to think about, wow, I never thought about that. Who actually does make decisions about that, and why should I care? So on that point, kind of bring us then to City Fabrick and how City Fabrick got launched and why.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of that. I mean, it was a great lead in because that was a large part of where we came from. Is like we were founded in 2011, launched in 2012 with 2 full-time staff people, and basically, the general premise was Long Beach as a community of this size would be, it's the same size as Portland or Miami or Pittsburgh or Detroit. And these communities have these independent voices around planning and community building. And Long Beach was, because we're in this sort of gravitational pull between Orange County and LA County, is like, we don't have any of that independent voice. I mean, if an organization were from the region, were to be involved in Long Beach, they would be sort of thinking of us in the same context as the Valley or South LA, which were, there's similarities, but there's obviously unique opportunities, unique challenges, unique assets. And that's kind of the premise behind City Fabrick. We were very sort of geographically focused. We still remain so, but as we've grown, our geographic reach has grown. But one of the things that we definitely still try to do is embed ourselves in the community. So we're not necessarily regional. We just operate in different communities across the region. So we're taking on a lot of different opportunities and projects and initiatives and coalitions in a variety of different communities, trying to embed ourselves similar to how we do in Long Beach. And so we were founded, 12 years ago, and my background wasn't in the nonprofit sector; it was in the more traditional architecture sector. And I will just make an enormous plug for the nonprofit partnership, because we were very fortunate to have a lot of assistance in the beginning. Everything from the executive director roundtable, which was a support group for executive directors, but also I did executive director training. We did a number of trainings on other subject matter, and really, for transitioning from a for-profit to a nonprofit, it was you guys are an incredible asset for our community, and I can't thank you guys all enough for everything that you've done for us.
Wow. Well, Brian, thank you so much. Thank you. And just just to make sure I'm sharing this, we did not. This is not paid.
There was no ad to this. No, there was no ad to this.
There's no exchange there. But thank you, Brian. So getting back to just kind of picking up on the grain of the multidisciplinary approach and work that City Fabrick takes. Describe to us what you're doing. What are some of your core areas of programming, your activities? When you talk about collaboration, it just sounds like you have so many different partners, but talk to us a little bit more about how we can center and understand what you're doing.
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit organization, and so we have a lot of flexibility in how we collaborate with our partners. We're not necessarily needing a paying client. We have grant support. We also use our surplus revenue for programming and advocacy. And so, obviously we have to keep the lights on, but, we range from, coalition partner, which, is just a number of nonprofit organizations collaborating on something, to, a more typical client and consultant relationship. We've actually grown our sort of social enterprise pretty substantially over the past decade, where, I'd say probably maybe 10% of our work when we began was consulting with other nonprofit organizations, local government, nonprofit, affordable housing providers, and even sometimes private organizations where there's a public benefit. To now it's probably, up to 70% of our work.
Wow.
But that work spans everything that's part of community development. It's affordable housing, park access, placemaking, community development and economic development, cultural development, environmental justice, transportation safety. I'm probably forgetting many things, but our team is made up of graphic designers and marketing professionals, landscape designers and architects, planners, urban designers, building designers and interior designers. We pretty much handle a pretty broad scope of our work and this is a perfect example. We had a meeting with one of our clients. We're working on a project that is converting a dilapidated motel into supportive homes for people that are formerly homeless. And we initially started talking about the building, and they're like, well, could you also help on the interior design side? And we're like, yes. I'm like, oh, well, we really need to work on an art program and identity and sort of a brand to this. You guys do that. We're like, yeah, we do that. And then they were talking about sort of a second phase that has a little bit more planning to it. And so we're like, yes. And there's a landscape. So, the thing that we offer to a lot of our partners is, sort of a one-stop shop when it comes to collaboration. And so that's on the client side, but it's also when we're in coalitions where, and this is the same thing. It's the same thing with our coalitions as our clients. It's like, we're just here to help. And so sometimes it's, designing a flyer. Sometimes it's, designing a building. And sometimes it's, something around where we do a bit of organizational development. And so it's really just, where the need is, where we can fit in, where we can support. Because we have a lot of very talented partners, and sometimes they can do exactly what we can do, but we can do something else. And so We just try to fit in where we can. Something that has, I'd say, sort of changed in some of our collaborating spaces is that, in the beginning, City Fabric was very sort of, and we still are, is like we were very much sort of oriented towards the symptoms. It's like, this neighborhood doesn't have park space, so let's find a park and design a park and work with the community to do that. Or there's we need affordable housing, so we're going to design some affordable housing. Or we're organizing with our community partners around displacement of local businesses. So we're trying to address those symptoms. What we've been evolving over time, and this is in part because of our partners helping us grow our awareness, is like looking at the systems more so. And so we've created a new park in Central Long Beach, Craftsman Village or Minor Park or whatever, and the park budget didn't grow to maintain that park. It's just the slice of the park budget for each park's maintenance got small. And so now we need to talk to our partners and our community about, really advocating for more resources for our parks department, because, this is upstream solutions that, what is it, a penny forward and a dollar poor? I don't know, but it's basically
I don't know, but that sounds great. It sounds like it captures what you're trying to say.
Yeah, but basically trying to work upstream, because more investment in our parks result in less crime downstream. It results in healthier population, so lower medical bills. And so trying to work those those angles and work with our partners to look at the systems, while we still are trying to make things immediately better by looking at the symptoms as well.
Absolutely. I bet for a lot of folks who are watching this video or will be watching the video in the future, absolutely. I mean, they get it. They can see, how this approach to working upstream is critical to, I think, just changing what, and it's not just about facilities, it's services, it's partners, it's all the things that make up a community. And I think what you're describing is the way you engage, the value add that you bring in to the thought. It's not just the thought partnership, but there's really something to be said about design. And it's design in a lot of its formats, right? I mean, design from how you're even convening the conversation to then that leads to maybe a particular outcomes. And the reason why I keep coming back to this, Brian, because it always amazes me how if we're not thinking about place, if we're not thinking about how a lot of the constructs that makes a community really work for the people who live there, we're missing a lot of the value of design. And again, it's not just design looking at it from an architectural point of view. So I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but but I just kind of want to say that and really reiterate that, because this is really fundamental to, I think, really building a very strong quality of life in communities. So with that said, I mean, why should we care about things like placemaking? Why should we care about things like place? And again, you did just share an example of this project where you were part of how this park shifted, right? And even funding the park. But taking it beyond that example, what should the rest of us really think about when we think about place?
I mean, I think, being aware of, how are the physical conditions of our community change our behavior. And so think about lighting at night. Is if you're walking down a street and there's not a lot of lighting, you feel unsafe. You might be just as safe walking down that street, that street with lighting, but you just don't know. You don't feel safe. So there's this perception of safety. And there is, in this example, there's also, perhaps a little bit less safety, everything from tripping, but like thinking about like how the character of a street is. And so, if the street is designed to be wide And think about if it's 2 lanes in either. Perfect example: 2nd Street in Naples versus 2nd Street in Belmont Shore. The streets are designed in very different ways, and people behave very differently, even though they have similarly posted speed limits. And it's the width of the street, it's the frequency of the stoplights, and so you tend to, and then also all the people around you, and the streets are narrower. And so your behavior as a driver changes. You try to be more aware. You tend to drive a little bit more slowly. There's still knuckleheads out there, but you tend to drive safer and tend to drive more consciously and be more aware when you're making turns. Versus like on 2nd Street in Naples, you tend to drive faster. You tend to be less aware. You tend to be just thinking about the car in front of you. So it's just like our physical environment. Those characters change our behavior. And being more aware of that, I think, is an important thing for, maybe being more conscious in some of these cases of what your behavior might do to others. Because think about 2nd Street again. You feel much safer walking down 2nd Street in Belmont Shore versus on Naples, basically because of that speed. But the other thing is to become stronger advocates for your community. You know what you want to advocate for. One of the things that we've done, and we're doing it in concert with some of our planning projects, is a people's planning, where we engage residents and get sort of a class of residents who are most active, and we teach them the 101 on planning, everything from how policies are developed and implemented, the decision-making process, when best to engage, because we always are engaging when we see a project we don't like, but there's so much in advance of that project that influences what happens with that project, that if you engage much earlier, you have much more ability to not get what you want versus what you see that day. And then there's also, we talk about housing, we talk about transportation, we talk about sustainability and environmental justice, and really trying to provide these residents the tools to proactively engage in decision making on behalf of their community. And for us, we like to also do this in advance of planning, because we also get we get to learn from them what are really in depth, what are the issues that are emerging in their community or that are already there that they're seeking to address. Because, when you have a community workshop or you're doing surveying or canvassing, you only have a certain amount of time to engage a single person. But in those, it's a longer conversation, and it's a shared learning, shared conversation. Right. So while we're talking about the technical aspects, they're sharing, on the ground knowledge of what the issues and what the opportunities are.
Wow. You know what? In this example, I think you were really able to just give us a very clear picture of how, when these elements come together, what they really do, to maybe even shift a lot of the ways, again, that we understand, or either how decisions are being made or resources are allocated in our community. And I just wanted to briefly go back, Brian, you mentioned it's called the People's Planning School?
Yes.
Okay, great. So for those who are looking at more, or who are looking for more information, how can they access that?
Yeah, so just the easiest while we're up here is info@cityfabric.org. And that's CITYFABRICK.org. And we have done those classes in various neighborhoods. We've done them in collaboration with partners in advance of a planning initiative. And so we're doing a similar program with the city of Long Beach as part of their zone in work for City Core, which is along the Anaheim corridor. You might have seen it in the paper. And so we've been doing those classes with a group of students in concert with the planning effort. So again, they're getting in-depth knowledge while providing us really important, essential information as we're going through this work.
Wow, that's awesome. So again, for anybody watching, all they need to do is go to info@cityfabric.org
Yep.
and connect with you all that way too. So shifting a little bit the focus of our conversation, and I'm looking over at my clock, I can't believe it's already the time that it is. I'm like, I could go on and on. I could ask you all sorts of questions, Brian. I'm just fascinated. Also, I will be looking into the People's Planning School. It's fascinating. Talk to us a little bit more then. What's around the corner for City Fabric? What's coming down the pike? What exciting news do you want to share?
Exciting news. I mean, so, we have had, much like a lot of organizations and individuals, we're coming out of COVID. We've had during that period of time, there was some initial shifting of what we were working on because, we were working on a lot of healthy community related initiatives with the health department and the parks department. And that sort of their work had to transition into more immediate response. And we similarly went into some more immediate responses around COVID related to supporting local businesses through Open Streets program and in collaboration with Long Beach Community Foundation, working on COVID safety programs with the city health department, as well as looking at food insecurity. And I'm going to plug another foundation, Miller, with support from the Miller's Foundation. And so that work continues. And, I think one of the things that we have to be mindful of as we're not returning to normal, we're already got a BA5, which is the newest subvariant. But, as things are sort of returning to a normal-ish, we need to retain the urgency that we once had during COVID. I mean, food insecurity was in existence before COVID. You look at the infection rates and the severity of injury and fatality from COVID. It's the same maps that you're going to see with redlining in a lot of cases. And these communities still need better access to healthcare and still need healthier communities. So we need to continue our urgency, and that's a lot of the work that we're doing. And even housing insecurity is just continued to get even worse and worse and worse. And we need to be looking at housing security with the same level of urgency. So that is like where we continue to focus our energy. We still doing work in the space of environmental justice, especially in West Long Beach. We're still looking at park access and with the Parks Department, as well as with many of our partners like Conservation Corps and Campfire and the DLBA. But I think that we need to continue our level of urgency that we had during COVID, and that's kind of our sort of, I don't want to say mantra, but our work style right now. I'm hoping to bring on a few more people in the near future because we're really busy and the urgency needs a few more hands. And we're always looking for more partners to be collaborating with us on these really essential issues.
And sense of urgency is such a great way of capturing all of what you just described and the importance of, again, continuing to really look not just proactively, but quite strategically, which is really, I mean, City Fabrick is just an amazing partner in really helping to convene and just the way you frame the conversation. Oh, I apologize. I think I might have, are we still on? Oh, looks like we are still on. I'm so sorry. I'm getting all these messages flash across my screen and I completely lost my train of thought. But I do remember I said City Fabrick is quite amazing, and I will always say that.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Brian, this has been just an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I so appreciate that you took the time to join us today. To really get to know more, again, what's at the heart, what's driving this work that you're doing. I think anybody watching is going to appreciate just the uniqueness of the role that your organization, fulfills, the various areas that you're leading. And again, we could have a whole session on collaboration and we would bring you back so we can talk about, wow, what is that looking like in all of these different spaces? I think we have, all of us have a lot to learn about what it really takes to convene various stakeholders in any of the work areas that we're, focused on. But with that, I want to leave, the last few minutes to you so you can share more about, anything that you want to announce about City Fabric or what's around the corner for you guys.
Sure. I mean, we are continuing to collaborate with a lot of our partners on, engaging our community stakeholders on so many different things. It's hard to name, from our work with the city on Zone In to working with the Parks Department on a couple vision plans that we'll be working on at MLK Junior Park and Shera Park, working with United Cambodian Community and some of our community partners and the city of Long Beach on visioning for the Cambodian American Cultural Center. We're working in West Long Beach on some advocacy work around environmental justice. We're going to be working with a number of downtown partners on continuing to activate our new Lincoln Park, make sure it is the great urban park that we all want it to be. And Long Beach Community Foundation, DLBA, and countless partners. So there's so much there that I would just suggest go to info@cityfabric.org, and we can connect you to. I have so many partners in our team, but also amongst our expanded team that we can put you in touch with without however you want to be engaged and be part of community building.
Absolutely. And I also want to encourage people to visit your website. I think you do a great job of just explaining the various areas that you're focused on. Your social media handles, Facebook, visit your Facebook page.
Yeah, I think they are all at City Fabric, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Awesome. All right. Well, Brian, thank you. I just want to have a part 2 and a part 3.
Yeah, I'm more
serious.
than happy to. I'd probably bring in other teammates because they've got a lot of grounded knowledge that we're still learning, but we've been doing quite a bit of good things. But I think there's a lot of good partners in our team, but our expanded team that have a lot to contribute to these conversations as well.
Awesome. Okay, everyone, info@cityfabric.org. Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be seeing you soon.
Bye, everybody.